that happens at scale. Like I have a lot of people that say like, hey, like, you know, you've inspired me to have a more dedicated mindset. Like I didn't necessarily set out to do that. I was just doing it to myself, but I was projecting it to the world and people relate.
It's like there's a story behind the canvas, but then there's also a story behind the person behind the brush.
Well, thanks so much for having us, bro.
Mr. Ricciardi,
Appreciate it.
It's been a long time coming. I've been looking forward to this particular episode for a long time.
Thank you. I'm grateful you guys are here.
Thanks for having us here.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
You have a beautiful studio, as people on the other side of the camera are going to come to find out once we get all the shots edited in. But you got a good thing going here, man.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful space. The cigar is hitting. I feel like, you know,
I
feel like I'm in Cuba, you know? I feel like, you know,
I often have a cigar here late night and, you know, it's a good space.
I'm seeing a lot of hearts too, so I'm feeling like love is in the air right now.
I'm feeling loved, you know?
I'm feeling loved right now, yeah. There's so much love, positivity going around. What's the meaning behind all these hearts? This is something that's close to your brand, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like, you know, for me, the main statement to it all is like when you follow your heart, incredible things happen. And I truly believe that. Ultimately, I followed my heart to pursue a career in art. You know, growing up, no one said become an artist. It's a viable career. So ultimately, through all the ups and downs of life and trying out different things, I landed on art because it was truly what my heart told me to do. And as airy-fairy as an artist as I sound, it truly is. And I believe that a lot of people have that opportunity, but they'll let societal norms or let people say like, well, your heart isn't always right? And I push through that. And that's, so the question about the hearts is like, I started painting hearts on my canvases very organically. And then as I continued to do them, as I started to travel around, people were like, oh, I recognize that heart. And then I just kept doing it. And I fell in love with doing it. And I've created so many different variations of what I can do with the heart that it allows me to, you know, really expand the heart.
And it's so synonymous with the whole Anthony Ricciardi brand, I feel like, because like for me at least, we look at LV and we instantly think Louis Vuitton. The heart has become synonymous with Anthony Ricciardi. Yeah. So the way you've established that brand, which I want to get into later, is really incredible how you started from essentially nothing and then all of a sudden you start painting hearts and it became who you are or who you're known for.
Long process in the middle of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then that's, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to go into it. And first of all, I want you to introduce yourself. I want people to kind of know who you are.
Yeah.
And how you kind of started it and what you do. And then I want to get in a bit about how you obviously weren't always in art. You obviously were in finance at first and you kind of shifted into this. So I want to get into that too.
No, for sure. So born and raised in Toronto. You know, like I mentioned, growing up, I loved art. My uncle was an artist, so I looked up to him. But it never really seemed realistic. So I love sports. I love different things. So I played baseball growing up. I played a lot of sports, but baseball was my passion. And I ultimately got a scholarship to play in Alabama. I went to Alabama State University, a Division I baseball scholarship. So it was like a really cool experience to do that. And when I was going down, I never even really thought about taking art as my major because it just didn't seem realistic. And they had a very good art program there, but I ended up studying finance because I knew some people, you know, family, friends, uncles, and stuff like that were in the finance world and they did well. So I was like, you know, well, ultimately I just want to do well. Like I want to be okay. And so I graduated with a degree in finance, come back to Toronto, started working for a real estate investment fund here in Toronto. I was in Yorkville. And I actually, everyone always asks me like, you must have hated your job. That's why you left. I'm like, I didn't. Like, I actually really enjoy the people I work with. I'm still friends with a lot of my colleagues till this day. I liked the work we were doing because it was very entrepreneurial. I worked for a mortgage lender. I was in a real estate financing, but like I dealt specifically with lending out mortgages to like large buildings and construction projects. So like the entrepreneurial side of it was so exciting to me. And I always considered myself an entrepreneur, even though I wasn't really doing anything in the entrepreneurial venture yet. So during those 5 years that I worked in finance, it wasn't like a short period of time. It was just over 5 years. Every night and weekend I would paint. And slowly but surely, like little steps started to happen. I would put on my own art shows, and like my aunts would come and my cousins and stuff, and then a couple more people would come, and then it just slowly snowballed over that 5-year period. And I finally said, I'm like, well, if I'm gonna ever do something crazy like quit my job, I might as well do it while we're young. And that was just over 6 years ago. I left my career in finance to pursue art full time. And since then, I've opened up galleries now around the world, but like mainly in Toronto. And I've done everything from London, England to Australia to New York to LA to Miami to Manchester to Brazil.
Was there any particular moment that you recall that sort of was like, aha, like I've got something I can do here, and let me just drop everything and double and triple down on this one thing? Was there a turning point for you?
No, it's a great question. Like regarding turning points for me, I always look at, I had the chance to reflect back on that now, and truly there was never one singular moment. It was always this combination of so many small things that led up to the decision of leaving, but then to the decision of anything. Like anyone sees a singular project that I do now, they're like, oh, that must have been the turning point. And truly it was like the combination of everything that I did ultimately made it to that turning point. So like all those small shows that I did and all of like the little free promo that I did and like small canvases and like just kept painting canvases. Ultimately that led to like a big turn. Like it was finally a breakthrough. Cause like early on when I wasn't buying, I didn't have the space to paint, or when I couldn't buy a bunch of canvases, I would paint one canvas, I'd paint it out full, I'd take the photos of it, then I'd paint it white and I'd start again. And that's just what I had to do. Like first I had no one buying my art. And then second, I had nowhere to put it. So I was like, well, let me just try something new. And like, I did that thousands of times to practice and like hone in on like what I like doing. And then, so I find all those little things were what the breakthrough was. I don't think there was one singular moment. I can revert back to, I know the day I quit, it was to a very specific thing was I had a mural opportunity in New York that I turned down because when I went to my boss, he's like, well, you're not an artist. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not an artist. I turned it down. And then 2 months later, that mural opportunity came back up at the Soho Hotel in New York. And I was like, well, I'm going to take it. And I got the call on a Wednesday night, Thursday morning. I quit my job, and Friday I was in New York. So it was like literally that quick.
And that's literally very similar for me because I used to work at Z103 for 5 years and then came to a point where it's not like I hated anyone or I didn't want to be there. I just wanted to do more bigger things in life. Yeah. So I kind of shifted and I actually quit on my 5 years of being there. And it was just like, funny enough, it was October 1st, 2018 is when I left. Wow. And same thing. I had an opportunity that popped up. I ended up going to Dominican, came back, and then I started my own business. Mm-hmm. But shifting from that corporate lifestyle and knowing that you obviously have an income coming and all of a sudden now going to being your own owner of your own business, how is the struggle of that? Obviously money's not coming in, there's no guarantee, and there's obviously costs, especially with your business. You have to put money into it in order for it to go. Yeah, of course. You can't just, like, it's not a little bit different when with mine, I'm not actually physically stocking up on any sort of, I guess, like products or inventory. For you actually have to buy the paint, the canvas, where are you putting it? So how was the struggle from that, leaving this comfort job that you had almost into something that's not uncomfortable, and you're obviously trying to build a family and everything else. So how did that work for you? Yeah.
No, it's a great question, but looking back now, like I don't know how I did it. Yeah. Genuinely, like looking back now, I don't know what was going through my head, because if I like a sane mind would say don't. Like I was working a good job and I was making decent money, but not enough. Like we had just bought our first. The week I quit was the week before my wedding, and the night I closed on my first house. It was a townhouse my wife and I bought before we got married. And so like I had all these things going out. It was like absolutely the worst timing for me to quit, but it ultimately ended up being the best, because there's no such thing as the right time. No. So for me, how to balance it all was, I always told myself, like, if I can get back those, like, 9-10 hours that I'm spending in the office, sitting in this cubicle, if I can get them back to like doing something that I believe in, what can happen? And I just ultimately truly believed in myself. I don't even know what that means. I just know that I really believed in the fact that I can execute, the fact that I'll find a way, like through thick and thin, making it work. And that's ultimately what I had to do.
Because I feel like a lot of people listening, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, like, you had something so good and so guaranteed going for you, and to drop all of that and to just pursue something that's so outside what the traditional mainstream norm would be is just mind-boggling to me. But the fact that you did it is such an inspirational story, man.
Yeah. And I just think that, like, people, I don't think you can just do it. Like, I think people need to give themselves a chance. And I believe in those 5 years, I proved to myself that I was willing to work the nights, work the weekends, like every single night paint till 2, 3 in the morning, then wake up at 6 and go to work. By proving that to myself and like making myself proud that, like, okay, Anthony, you're going to actually execute this, the transition was a lot easier. I think that if I just said tomorrow I'm going to wake up and become a pro snowboarder, and I've never snowboarded before, it would be pretty crazy for me to drop everything. But like I had years built up of like all this like, internal self like knowledge, like I can do this. And then finally making that transition almost became seamless when it really shouldn't have. It almost became like, yeah, this is what I do. I'm an artist now.
And is that like a philosophy and mindset that you gained from your career in sports?
I think so.
The discipline and stuff like that?
Yeah, like I really, I attribute a lot of my life to sports, especially team sports. I played baseball, I played soccer, I played hockey, but baseball specifically, like not only the work ethic and playing at a higher level, playing in Division One, it showed me like what it takes to make it to the next level. Meaning like the early morning workouts, the discipline with your diet, the discipline with your work ethic on and off the field. All that stuff translates into anything that I do. So I attribute a ton of my success or anything that I've been able to do like personally to baseball because it taught me a ton of life lessons that otherwise I would never have.
And then you obviously came from a career in finance as well. So I'm curious, as an entrepreneur in the creative industry, are there any particular like valuable skills or knowledge that you drew from your career in finance into your own business? And
yeah.
Because a lot of people listening are probably thinking, okay, so you're an artist, but how do you marginalize that? How do you
make money? Because
do you make money?
When you think of an artist, like first of all, I think it's very underrated. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually make money in art.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, how is he making money? Like, how are you making money? How is this like feasible?
Well, society has told us for so many years that there's such thing as a starving artist.
Yeah.
But at the same token, society has bragged about the fact that there's art money, right? Like there's people that actually want to collect multi-million dollars paintings. There's no in between.
Yeah.
So because of that, it makes it really hard for young artists or even young creatives in general. I look at like acting and singing, all these different things, to like want to take a stamp because there's no space in it. But I really look at it as like as a creative entrepreneur, you're creating a product for the market. And then you're just going to find different avatars, like different humans to sell your piece to. And that's all I've done very, very slowly, like from free paintings to $100 paintings to $1,000 paintings to $10,000 to $30,000 to $60,000, whatever the thing may be. It just kept finding the avenue in which that I can find the homes, the venues, the hotels, the whatever I'm putting artwork in, to really just, place my artwork. So like the finance side of it actually inversely has taught me about creativity, because what I was able to learn through my finance career was these individuals that I was working with were extremely creative in how they came up to the financing, how they structured deals, how they worked through problems. And I was like, well, what if I think about that? Because art, just painting on a canvas, it isn't necessarily creative. You can just splash a canvas and sell it for millions of dollars. All the other stuff that you're doing, structuring around that canvas, working out leasing agreements for galleries, working out deals, that's creative financing in theory. So really finance taught me more about creativity and structure than actually art did.
I think that's where you got the foundation from, because
for sure,
if you were just an artist that just kind of like started from the beginning,
yep,
you wouldn't have known how to invoice. You wouldn't have known how to sort of structure,
simple thing, you're right,
contracts, all that stuff. But I think that was kind of the structure and the foundation of things, and then it kind of you related into this.
It also exposed me to wealth with regards to not personal, but it exposed me to people that were collecting art. If I just came from the art world and I never came from the finance world where, the partners of the company I was working for collected $1 million paintings. We had a collection in our office that was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth for each of these paintings. I was able to see individuals and understand, like, these people are buying these as investments, and these people are buying them because not only because they love them, but there's so many other factors. How can I, as an artist, play into each of those factors? Like, how can I be attainable in terms of price point? How can I be approachable? How can I be something that people want on their walls, like to actually be pretty? And then, so finance actually taught me all of that. Whereas I've got to speak to a lot of, graduates from OCAD or different art schools in Toronto and globally, and they're so focused on like the brush stroke. They're so focused on this type of paint. I'm like, I don't even know the type of paint I use. I mean, I just use whatever I find. Yeah. Like, I mean,
but that's a true artist.
Yeah.
That's a true artist.
And like, I'm not worried about the type of brushes.
Because you're not overthinking it. Like, it's literally art.
Yeah.
Versus the ones that are like sketching it and like, oh, like, no, but like, I know, like, they're so picky. But it's like, but that's not art. That's kind of just like.
Yeah. That's where being like, that's another thing where finance taught me, like, execute. Right? Like, you have a deal come in, like you work out the deal and then execute it. And that's the same way I look at artwork, is like, if I have a vision for something, it may actually end up being bad. And that happens often, right? But I'm going to try. I'm going to try to execute what I'm thinking in my head onto this canvas. And if I try it enough, maybe I'll perfect it.
So okay, I'm going to throw a really philosophical question at you here, but do you think art is conscious or unconscious? In the sense that, do you have to think about what you're putting on the canvas, or to some extent, do you have to let your mind go and just see what your fingers come up with?
I do a little bit of both now. It is conscious and unconscious. Like the base layers of every single one of my canvases are an abstract. I showed you guys some of them, but like they're abstract, like just throwing paint down and like feeling the canvas. But like the top layer now with my style of artwork, it does take a little bit of planning. Not a lot of planning. Like we're looking at like a bunch of linked hearts. We're looking at things like there's no plan to how I'm going to link these hearts, but I know going into that canvas that I want to link the hearts here. Or like I want to have two canvases that connect, or if I want to have love across the bottom of it, like I need to make sure I'm leaving space for that. So the way that I'm painting now is like the base layers are just like true feeling, depth, texture, layers. And then the top layer is like definitely more thought out. I'll usually do a pre-sketch. It'll never look like the end of final painting, but I usually do a pre-sketch to say like, this is the direction I'm taking.
Nice. I want to go back to something you just said, how art almost gave you access to like a different echelon of society. Just seeing big corporate people, anybody that collects art typically has deep pockets. So my question is, and we talk about this a lot on this podcast specifically about networking.
Yeah.
Your network is your net worth.
So 100%. How important has your network and your personal connections been in this particular endeavor of yours?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been everything, right? Like I didn't, coming into it, I knew no one in the art world. And although I saw some people that bought art, I knew no one that actually bought art. And my art was so cheap at the time, they would never even look in my direction. So networking and putting myself in rooms, and that could be through charity events, that could be through whatever it may be, I just did a ton of it. And I still to this day do a ton of it because your network is your net worth. And I really believe that we need to be, put yourself in the right circles, because those circles have friends.
Yeah.
Some of my biggest clients have come as friends of a singular client. Like I'll sell a singular painting to one individual, and they'll have a friend that loves art that buys 6. And that story has told itself over and over again, because usually, like you just mentioned, like the people you hang around with probably have similar likes.
Yeah.
Like if you have a group of 5 friends around a dinner table, if one of them likes art, there's a chance that another one does. It's not very likely that if one person likes hockey, every single other person hates it. You have nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be friends. So because I get into the art circles now, and that just come with just meeting thousands of people, being at hundreds of events, having to do all the events that you don't necessarily think about or wanting to go. You know how sometimes it's
and I think that's a skill you have also from the finance side, is that you were obviously out there, you were social, you were networking, and that's essentially how we met. And how long is it? I think it's been like 6 years now. And we met through another friend, and we kept in touch and kind of grew the relationship. And like now we're here, and I think it's just cool how people meet each other, and I think that's super important, because networking doesn't always necessarily mean you're meeting the people that are super in line with you. Sometimes you're meeting people that are completely on a different side of a different industry.
Yes, and you don't know what it leads to 6 years later. Like you don't know what things lead to. I have a great story that I've been telling now. I have a client that bought a painting in Vegas. His name's Brad Lee, and he has a podcast. And over like a period of time, we were going back and forth about getting me on his podcast, and I didn't really think much of it. Like, of course I want to be on his podcast, it's a big podcast.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what can happen on the back end. The gallery in Australia that I did a big show with, they found me from that podcast. Who would have thought, like after years of talking to him, selling a painting, doing a podcast, 8 months later, after the podcast left, a random guy in Australia, he's not a random guy, he owns a big gallery, but a person in Australia, the other side of the world, listens to this podcast and goes, oh, I like his art, let's bring him out to Australia. And now, we're looking at a painting that's shipping out there, but I've done a ton of artwork in Australia. Who would have thought? Right? But we can all tell that story 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
You never know that's why you also got to be a good person in society.
That's the other thing I was going to touch upon. Yeah.
Right? Like, you know what I mean?
You can't burn your bridges, especially like in this industry, any industry. Like if someone's not going to buy something, don't take it to heart.
No.
Don't let your ego get in between it. Put your ego aside. who knows, maybe one day they'll refer someone to you, or maybe one day, you know, they're going to want something for you. But there's so many people that are ego driven that they always think about the sale right away.
Yeah.
You can't think of it. Like we always talk about this, like don't be transactional.
Yes.
Actually care.
Yeah.
Like do you generally care about the client? Like I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I heard you say that on a recent
like
pod.
don't always be
it was-
transactional. It's not always about being transactional. Actually care.
Yeah.
Like I get, obviously you want to make money, but if you're always money focused and money hungry, it's not going to come. It's going to come so quick, and it's going to go so quick.
It's too, like outside people, and when I really like break down like how I operate or spend a lot of time with me, they're like, you're a little bit crazy, because I'll go to different parts of the world on a whim just to meet someone, just for potential to chat.
Yeah, I see your Instagram.
And
Like one morning you're like Yorkville, the next morning you're like in the US. I'm
yeah,
like, what's going on?
I just, cause like someone's like, yeah, I really like your art, I want to talk to you about it. I'm like, well, I'll be there tomorrow. Like, why don't we just chat? And I'll just figure out a way. And a lot of times, like literally 9 out of 10 times, it leads to nothing. But the one time, it leads to something very big. And I just believe if you stack those little wins up, they add to something big. Playing a long game.
But that's the different kind of, I guess, ideology having, like not always assuming that something's going to come from it. Like the fact that you're paying for the flight, accommodations, everything, and there's no guarantee, and you're still going to do it, and then who knows, maybe it might not even come through. Maybe the person's just wasting your time.
100%. I mean,
But
it happens. And
the fact that you have this kind of like quality control and like this standard of like, listen, if you want to talk to me, I'll fly out.
Yeah.
And that goes back to your finance side. Yeah.
I deliver probably, 98% of my paintings. Like whether it's in Puerto Rico or London or Kentucky or Orlando, like I'm delivering canvas, especially now at the scale, the size, and the price point is like, I want to say thank you, first of all, like for you know, supporting my artwork and liking my artwork. And I want to see it up in this home, and I want to understand, like, why did you buy my art? Like what spoke to you about this piece? And a lot of people tell me that it's not a sustainable model, and I get it. Like at scale, like selling hundreds of paintings, you can't do that. But I'm like, I can until I can't.
But that's where you stand out. Because which other artist is, first of all, if getting an inquiry and they're flying out to wherever in the world to meet the person, or let alone delivering the art piece thing, that's where the customer service comes into play.
Yeah.
Which I think the finance side has sort of built this foundation for you that no matter what you have, obviously like customer service down pat, which is huge.
Yeah.
People buy based off relationships. They don't just buy, but like you can sell a piece for $100,000, and to them, they're buying it because you're the one who's painting it,
Yep.
not anyone else.
That I learned that really, really, really strongly in art, because like there is canvases with, I said it earlier, with one splash that is hundreds of thousands. I'm like, well, what is worth it? And in a lot of cases, it's the galleries that represent these individuals that have built up such an incredible stature where like the artwork that we put forward is good. So for me, up until this year, I've represented myself. Up until like just 2 years ago, I still represent myself, but now I have the gallery in Australia. I'm working with a gallery in New York. And I'm starting to go into galleries mainly because it's unsustainable for me to do my own shows in all these places at the same time, right? Because historically, I would go to Miami, set up in Miami for a month, do a show, go to LA, do a show, do all these different shows. But what if I wanted to have like 3 of them at the same time? It's just not sustainable. Yeah. So now instead, I'll go for the opening nights. Like I went to Australia for the opening night. I'll go to Miami for the opening night, and then I'll keep figuring it out. And if something sells, then we'll figure it out from there. But that's sort of how I've done it. It's just trying to figure out the business side of it. Like, how can I actually be in all these places while still maintaining that level of customer service?
Plus, you still have to paint as well, and that's like the most important part.
Yeah.
We were talking about
we
this
talked
earlier.
About earlier, yeah.
Where there's
I've done different ventures, and being an entrepreneur, I've tried so many different things. I make so much different stuff, and so often I'm like, wait, 2 months went by, I have not made any new art. I'm like, well, my main business is making art. And if I'm not making or trying new things, building something, then I'm going to be stale. And I can look back and be like, oh, that's why I was stale those months. Like, because like any entrepreneur, but like obviously there's months that are having incredible success and there's months that make $0. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. And the only way that you can guarantee consistency is by being consistent. Yeah. By actually putting your head down, doing all the work and everything you know you have to do as often as possible.
But I guess that comes with the territory too, being in any creative or abstract endeavor. Like there's going to be times where you just have to take a hiatus and just take a month, 2 off because creatively you might not be there. So I'm curious, like in those periods, those dry periods where you're not painting, where do you get your inspiration for the next thing?
Like you for sure get creative block. Like even for like me, like how do you sort of overcome those? And like obviously it gets difficult because your whole business is based off of being creative. So
for sure, The way I've got through creative block is by just doing something different. And what I mean by that is like trying something new. Well, taking a step away has helped me a lot. We've always, because my wife works with me and my son travels everywhere with us, we've been able to like tack on mini family vacations to almost all of my travel. So when I'm traveling to deliver a painting, I'll tack on an extra 2-3 days, 5 days, whatever it may be, to like just hang out with my family. Those are like the little mini resets that I've really utilized, and like through journaling and all like the airy-fairy manifestation stuff that we want
Journaling
to talk
is super
about.
important.
As much as people extremely important.
As much as people knock it, like journaling is super important because they're writing down your thoughts and everything.
I mean,
like,
if you go back and look 9 years ago into my journals, today, I mean, I've exceeded what I thought, but literally everything has come true because I spoke it into existence.
Wow.
And I truly, truly believe it, because you literally can't work towards something if you don't know what you're working towards. So with the creative block standpoint is like what I've really been able to do, I think is try different things. Like all the layers to my paintings are because of so many different trials and errors. So like when I don't want to paint, like, I mean, there's a ton of time where I just don't physically want to paint, and that happens. But I'll write on a canvas today. I'm not going to paint. I'll use oil pastels. I've never done that before. I'll do something on a piece of cloth. I'll just try something new. Because I mean, it still is something I love to do. It doesn't mean I don't want to do in that moment. It doesn't mean I don't love it. So I'll just try something new, and that usually unlocks something different. Sometimes it just ends up looking like shit, but sometimes it looks great.
Yeah. But that's so powerful what you just said. It's so interesting. You just said that you're big into manifestation, and then like years of thinking things into existence through writing it down in your journal. Mm-hmm. I feel like you're doing that every day when you're creating art, right? Because you're literally manifesting like an image that you have in your head onto the physical world through paint and on the canvas.
And my artwork has a ton of text. So as you'll see, like if you look at that canvas just behind you, it's a ton of text. Like that is literally a journal entry, right? Like it was a 3-hour writing journal entry of like what it takes to work hard. Like if you just read through it, it's like, it'll say, dream the next human wake up. It's me talking to myself, but it resonates with so many people.
Wow.
Because everyone feels the exact same way. So I use my art also as a stepping stone for myself to say like, you can do this. And I continuously write, and that's where the heart continues to play out. Because I keep telling myself, like, just keep following your heart. Like, and like, we touched upon like the downsides of entrepreneurship, like the ups and downs, but like having something as strong as a heart, as my symbol and everything that I do, has really allowed me to keep pushing through.
I think I need a new canvas, literally as my journal. I think
I
think that's gonna be the new flex.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out my 5-minute journal. I'm just gonna have a canvas in the morning, and I'm just gonna start writing it. At the end of it, I'm gonna bring it to him and be like, just paint over it. And
Time lapse the whole thing.
No, if you got a little canvas and you wrote on it every single day, and you wrote over the other day every single day, it would become a really cool piece of art.
I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. There you go.
Do it. There you're an artist.
You're
an artist.
There you go. Something I did want to touch up on, and this is an issue that I have all the time, is you said that you've been doing a lot of businesses, you got into different ventures, and that's something that I've had issues in the past where I kind of spread myself thin.
Yeah.
Where there's so many opportunities that pop up, and I take this, and then you kind of forget about everything else you do, and then it comes to a point where you're going to have to sort of reject offers, and people get super upset and all this stuff. How do you deal with that?
I'm bad. I don't deal with it well. I'm still learning, to be totally honest. I really, really am. Just extremely recently, I have put to the side like a bunch of very big projects that I was working on that were outside of art, and like making money, like things that like potentially could make money, or things that couldn't, like whatever it is, investments and all these different things, because I needed to hone back on like, I really believe in like time blocking things where if I spent the next 2 months just creating artwork, and this is the reason you see a lot of like blank canvas here, is I just bought a bunch of canvases because I'm like, I want to create a lot right now. And then there's going to be a time to go promote a lot. Then there's going to be a time to try new things a lot. But like, I believe that when I try to do everything, I'm taking the long way there, and I'll never get there. Like anyone that I really know, and I've been very fortunate enough to like have clients and friends that have done very well for themselves, not only financially, but just in life, just like as human beings. And what I found is like the way they either made their wealth or the way that they gained freedom in their life was by focusing extremely intently on one singular thing. And I think that I've done a bad job of that historically. I think that I've spread myself so thin, wanting to do everything. And I'm finally back in this place now where like, I'm going to create the most incredible artwork that anyone's ever seen. I'm going to do that as often and as large scale as possible. And then maybe we'll think about other things. But like, I've spread myself thin so many times. And it's not the right way.
Yeah, no. It's like you focus on one thing and then you're trying to play catch up with the next thing, and then this thing falls behind, and then something else pops up. It's like I love to do multiple things. Like I think like I'm Kevin O'Leary at one point.
You get FOMO.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, crap, I can't do it anymore. Yeah, and then you get depressed and all this stuff, and it's like, shit, like I don't know like where it's going. Like, do I stop this? So it's like I kind of just pick like a few things and I just stick to it, and that's it. And I literally just reject offers. I'm like, listen, at this moment I can't. And people take it offensively. They're like, oh, like how could you do this to us? And it's like with all due respect, I got to do it for myself.
For sure.
Yeah.
The worst with me is like it's me creating the offers. It's me thinking of the ideas, like being a creative and like being just like a through and through entrepreneur. It's like oftentimes it's literally me being like, I want to create something new. I want to create a clothing line, a jewelry line, a this, a that, pillows, and this, and like I want to do a brand that does an app that projects things on the wall, like just
it's
crazy
not a bad
stuff.
issue. There's people that can't even think of that, and then there's us thinking about, okay, no, I want to do this, and it's like we can't execute. We're just only one person, so
because execution is everything.
Yeah,
I really believe that. Like execution is everything, and you can spread yourself thin as much as you want. But if you're not executing on anything, all those parts, or have people in place to execute for you, then you'll ultimately fail. So I really believe that honing on one thing that you love and executing it at its fullest potential is the only way to actually see success in anything.
That's so powerful, and that's a lesson we've learned by doing this, just the amount of guests we've had. And that's the common theme that we're seeing with everyone that we've interviewed is you just got to stick to one thing. Like you might get like the fear of missing out on all these other opportunities, but like you said, you risk spreading yourself too thin and not putting enough effort into one thing for it to take off.
And then you're missing out on your own thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. No.
Which is even worse.
100%. No, it is like that's what just happened to me.
Yeah.
I started looking like, I don't got any art. Like, where's all my art? I'm an artist.
Yeah.
And like that, and that happens. And it could be worse. Like it could be, sometimes you get too lost in the sauce and then you're like, eventually you're too far down. You're like, well, now I got to play catch up.
Yeah.
Starting from scratch. So yeah, it's a fine line.
Talking about art, there's a piece that you have, and we were talking about this earlier. It's all wrapped in like Canadian money.
Mm-hmm.
Shredded money,
literally.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought, you actually got all this money. The client, had 50,000 budget. You shredded all this money, put it on, and that's why. And apparently, that's not what it is. No. I want to get into that. People are definitely curious about that.
I have this friend. He does recycling with the Bank of Canada, and I worked out a structure with them. So. Our Canadian bills here in Canada are made of plastic. So when we shred them, we can melt them down to like be recycled. And so decommissioned bills, that's all the bills that I'm using. They're all decommissioned or defective bills. The step, they've never done it before, but the step before they get melted down to being turned into something else, I'm actually getting the raw shredded money. So it literally looks like money, it's shredded money. But it's like literally millions of dollars in shredded money, which is so funny. Because like think about like a $10,000 stack of money. It's not very big. If you shred that up, it wouldn't even cover a little decimal of a canvas.
I'm thinking about just piecing them all together, sitting right now and just like gluing them all together.
That's why they give it to me all mixed up. I would never be able to.
The central bank's about to clip this and be like, this is the cause of inflation right now.
Who's this guy? Yeah, so that's the way, that's how it came to be. It was just through a creative project. But that, one of those times was me thinking, I had that money for a while before I did anything with it. And it was this time where I was like, well, it actually started with a sculpture. Before I knew I could put it into the thing, I had this mold of a heart that I was making, and I was doing it with resin. I'm like, what would happen if I just, sprinkle some of this cash inside? And I ended up making like full hearts of this money. So that was just by trying new things, like through creative blocks, trying something else. I wanted to start doing sculptures. And then I ultimately did. And I used things like money, things like dice, things like this into it. And
I think that's super sick. Like, I think that's the most creative thing I've seen.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Like, it's super sick. Yeah.
Let's face it, we live in 2023. Social media is important. It's a key component in every entrepreneurial endeavor. How have you leveraged social media and social media channels to promote your art and to...
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, like... Obviously, like you're painting, like you're painting. You have to be customer service. You have to be janitor. You have to clean up the spot. Like you're doing so many different things. Like how are you managing to stay on top of social media trends? All these trends that are going on, replying to people. Like it's a full-time job.
I think I've done just an okay job at it.
Yeah.
I think that it could be executed at a much higher level, and I'm starting to implement a system to do it at a higher level. But I think that the way I've been able to like see a little bit of growth and see traction, I won't say success by any means, but see traction on social media I'm truly original to me. Like I showcase a lot of my life. I remember early on when my son's 3. And when he was first born, I thought to myself, I was like, do I want to show him on social media? I know there's people that don't, whatever, like everyone can do whatever they want. But for me, I would have to literally try not to show him because he's so in my life, right? Or my wife. Like I would literally have to go out of my way to like move the camera away when they're in the room with me. So I was like, well, I want to showcase every aspect of my life. Like whether it's like a training journey, like a weight loss journey, like I'm trying to like train for a marathon or an Ironman, or I'm going to do, I'm on vacation with my family, or I'm painting, or I'm struggling through a painting, or I'm loving a painting, or I'm doing a mural on the other side of the world. I think I've done a good job of showcasing all of it. Have I done a good job of, structuring to the trend and stuff? Not enough. And I think that's where I need to work on. But that's what part of the process, because it is a full-time job. You're 100% right. Just replying to comments is a full-time job.
Yeah.
So
engaging
creating the
and
content
so much,
is a whole other level.
Yeah.
Like for sure.
And there's one thing that I always say, and this is something that I do personally, it's I don't just show what I do, I show other aspects of it, like smoking a cigar, driving a car that I like, classic cars,
Yep.
Like food,
Yep.
like whether it's posting art or whatever it is, because you never know who you're going to meet that also has those passions, because
sure.
someone might not like me posting a billboard, but they might like me smoking a cigar,
Yep.
or driving a car, or like a watch, or this, and that's how you get other businesses as well. And that's, I think, the unique sort of angle that I take things, and I think you do it as well.
I do it 100%. We told a story before we started rolling here of how I got to meet the Iota family, which is one of the top cigar creators in the world. It was because I post a lot of cigars, and my coach in Miami was like, "Hey, I see you like cigars because I post them every day.
Yeah.
You should meet the creator of Camacho Cigars and the creator of Iota." I'm like, oh, that sounds fun.
Which is super sick, yeah.
Because I post cigars. Or even better, the second thing that has happened with like cigars and scotch, and I like all these different types of things, the clients that you're starting to be with, they also like this stuff.
Yeah.
You start going around, remember about the network, it's like you're like-minded people. Someone who likes to sit around and enjoy a nice glass of scotch and a cigar is probably somebody that I like. Like we're probably gonna have some things in interest.
Yeah.
Not like, but like we'll have interests that are similar.
Which is probably someone who's also passionate about art, which is probably someone who's going to eventually
They're all in the same circles.
Yeah.
Right? They're all in the same circles. Like they're just different people have different interests. So like showing my interests to the world has allowed me to connect differently. And at the same token, in doing that, I also show me going running in the morning and working out, which is very opposite from like having
Well, who knows?
right?
Someone
You don't know.
might be a runner, and it just
Yep.
happens that they didn't know you do that, and they might
Yep.
connect you on that side aspect.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
or just appreciate, or someone just trying to. I have a lot of people that look to me, and I get DMs every single day, like, you motivated me to work out. Like, I am by no means A, in great shape, but B, like a fitness motivator. But because I'm trying. To work
and you're
out
just
every
so
day.
real. Like I see your 5:30 in the morning
Yeah, I'm
snaps,
trying.
and you're literally like you're wearing like this suit, you're going at it,
Yeah.
and you're like day number 27 of like 55, and it's
Yeah.
like, holy shit, this guy did this for 27 days. Like, why can't I do it?
Yep.
And like you literally motivate people. And
Yep.
I think it's not necessarily about being a motivator or anything. It's like, who knows? Like, there's been times where I literally see him, I'm like, shit, like I need to get them to go to the gym because I see him, like he's doing it at 5:30 in the morning. Why can't I do this? Like,
Yep.
he's been working till like 2 in the morning, and then 5:30 he's up.
Yep.
So it's like,
No, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah.
It really does, because when you do that, and you guys know this too, but like when you do that stuff, you don't think anyone's actually caring or watching.
You'd be surprised. There's so
But
many
like
people,
I've
yeah.
ran into people now because of like doing stuff like sort of on a global scale. Like I ran into people like on the street in LA. Like it's insane. Not by no means like in a fan basis, but like they may have followed me through a friend, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, like I started running because of you, because you did your run with Rich." I'm like, I inspired you to run? Like that's the
Yeah.
craziest thing in the world. And like that happens at scale. Like I have a lot of people that say like, hey, like, you've inspired me to have a more dedicated mindset. Like I didn't necessarily set out to do that. I was just doing it to myself, but I was projecting it to the world, and people relate.
It's like there's a story behind the canvas, but then there's also a story behind the person behind the brush,
For sure.
right?
And it's like
that-
almost like mysterious because you don't always necessarily post about it. But like I remember one of the first videos I saw, and this is like when Instagram just had that like feature where everyone was starting to put captions. You were one of the first videos that I saw with the captions, and you had some like motivational speech going on. I'm like, yo, this, like that's sick.
Yeah.
Like not only is he painting the motivation on it, now he's telling me about it. That's like, everything's kind of tying together.
A lot of people ask me about that, and they're like, well, it started to take away from my social media by me doing so much like speaking, front facing. But truly, like I was doing it in front of my art, and I really loved it because I personally, I don't know how cheesy this sounds, but I watched my old videos back sometimes for my own motivation.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm running and I'm like struggling or I'm working through something, I'll go listen to like a video of me telling myself or telling someone else, hey, like you should execute, you should get up, like work hard. And I'm like, oh wait, was me. Like, of course I can do this, right? I can get through this. And like, that's how I got through a lot of different things in my life. Just thinking back to those things. That's why I do them.
And I think the unique part is that when you think of an artist, artists don't typically talk.
Yeah.
They're very mysterious. And the fact that now you're coming out of that whole, I guess, realm of like every artist kind of being very mysterious and not talking and kind of being like quiet. And now there's an artist who is not only giving me motivation, but he's also painting. That's like different. So I think that's a unique angle as well, where it's like people are like, okay, you know what? He's kind of breaking through that shell of like what an artist is.
Yeah.
He's making his own like lane. And
I like it.
Yeah.
Right. Like I like, I mean, even podcasts.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of artists doing podcasts. Like I'm here. We're here. Right. I was in Denver last month for a speech. I spoke on stage at an entrepreneurship event on entrepreneurship. It had nothing to do with art at all. Right. And like as an artist, that's crazy to do. But like I really like it and I enjoy it. So I'm just going to keep doing it.
Are there any unique stories you can tell us about people you've met along your journey, or particularly big commissions or unique commissions that you've...
What's the biggest, most expensive commission you've done?
The most expensive commission was about 65,000, like singular piece. No, like, so that's a singular piece.
Yeah.
But like I've done bigger murals and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they range all the way up to about 100.
And then in regards to like celebrities, artists, who's the biggest person you work with?
Personally, like done a piece for and worked. Like I've been very grateful to do a lot of pieces for a lot of different celebrities, but a lot of times it would be like through management, or I would just meet them or like thing. But like actually make a piece for and for his house would be Shaquille O'Neal. That was like super cool. Yeah, I have a piece in the front. I'll show you guys that he signed for me. But like I got to actually make a piece for him, and I mean there's been a bunch, but like that would be like the coolest. But like funny story. I have a very funny story. It's totally side story, but I was at the MMVAs like 4 years ago with Cardinal Fischel. He's a friend. He actually performed at our wedding. He's amazing.
Shout out to Cardi.
And Cardi's the best. And Carlos is the best. And I'm in the backstage of the MMVAs, and I'm in the bathroom, and I'm wearing a jacket that I painted. And all of a sudden, I'm at the urinal. This is a funny story. I'm at the urinal, and someone grabs my shoulder. And I'm like, what? What? Like, what? Like, yeah, I'm like, well, hey. And I turn around, it's Post Malone. Oh. And I'm like, and he's like, bro, I just had to tell you I like your jacket. Like, as I'm at the bathroom. And I'm like, oh, like, thanks, Post Malone. This is crazy. So I turn around, we're like washing our hands. And it was probably a 15-second walk, but it felt like 40 minutes, like walking back to the green room. And so we started chatting, and he's like, bro, I just love your art. I love your like paintings, like whatever. Like, I need this jacket. So I ended up giving him my jacket, like off my back. He wore it on stage. And he ended up having a show that, so he performed then, and he came back on Sunday. So I got his number, and we started texting, and I'm like, are you coming back? He's like, yeah. And he wasn't, this was like maybe it was 5 years ago. Oh my gosh.
When he was, just started, yeah.
The congratulations just dropped.
Yeah.
So like he wasn't posty as he is now, right? So he was easy enough to like text and meet up with when he came to Toronto. So like that was like the craziest celebrity story I have, because like how it happened was just, you couldn't plan that. Like it was just so funny. It was very organic. A lot of them have been organic. Like a lot of the things that I've done, even outside the celebrity world, like the client basis that I'm working with, they're very, very, very organic in how I've got to them, and like how we've been able to like create pieces for their home that are like really timeless pieces for their family to collect forever. So it's been fun.
Do you remember the first money you received for your work?
Yeah, I remember like the first show, like which was a long time ago. It was like 9 years ago now, like my first art show, and I think the paintings were like $600 to $700. And I'm so grateful to this day for like a few of my aunts, a couple cousins, a couple like different, it was family and friends that came, right? I didn't have clients. And like some people supported me, and I'm still so grateful to those people, and like I know who they are, and I know what it meant to me. And so yeah, I don't remember maybe the first singular check that came in, but I definitely remember that moment.
Do you still have those pieces?
They still do.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I really,
going
really
up
funny.
in value every year.
Really, yeah, for sure. Like really funny. I had one of them that was on my website, and a client wanted it, and I think it was my cousin. So I called them. I'm like, hey, like somebody wants to buy this painting. Like what? Like, can you sell it? Like, do me a favor, please. Like, I don't want any money for it. Like, sell it. And they're like, what are they offering? It was like, this is a couple years ago, and it was like $5,000. He's like, no, I want 25,000. He's like, actually, I want 250,000. Like, obviously funny because he's like, I'm never going to sell it, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I was like, well, there will come a point when those are worth a lot, and they might. So it's like it's a funny thing, but like I'm very grateful for those
That's sick.
He didn't end up selling it.
There was one question that somebody asked me to ask you, and it's a good question. It's kind of deep. They said, as someone who pursued a different career path before fully embracing art, what advice would you give to individuals who are torn between practicality and pursuing their true passions?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think you need to. It's all about analyzing your day. I think that a lot of us do a really bad job of actually understanding how much time we have in a day to execute things. So this individual is asking, how do I be practical versus, actually creating a structured job and then doing something that's so impractical, like becoming an artist? Well, analyze actually how you're spending your hours in a day. Like, we all have work obligations, we have family, we have maybe significant others, maybe kids. But I guarantee you have an hour in the morning that you can wake up earlier than everyone. I guarantee you there's an hour or maybe even two that you're probably just sitting around, that you're probably just watching Netflix, that you're probably doing something that you shouldn't be. When you spend that out in just a 7-day period, a week period, can you find 5, 6, maybe 7 hours, so just even 1 hour a day to do something that you think is impractical? I believe the answer is yes. I actually believe it's way more than 1 hour a day that we can do this. When you actually sit down and write out what your day looks like, us humans, have so many hours in a day that we're wasting. When I started doing that, I found an extra 2-3 hours a day, which I was able to start compounding. And over a 30-day period, a 6-month period, all of a sudden, I just spent an extra 1,000 hours, whatever it may be, hundreds of hours on this side hustle, on this little craft that I want to do. I guarantee you're getting better at that craft the more that you do it. And that's the only way to properly make the transition. If you just try to do it on a snap, it'll never work. It physically can't work. Like you can't just pick up one day and be like, okay, I'm an artist today. Like I said earlier, like I'm not a snowboarder tomorrow because I never snowboarded. I need to slowly build to it, find an hour a day to study, find an hour a day to work, find an hour a day to think, and then slowly build to it. So I think the answer is, if someone's making that transition, like, have you really exhausted every other waking hour? You need your 8, 9, 7, 12 hours sleep. I don't know what people sleep. You need your hours of sleep. You need your obligations. You need your family, your friends, your kids. But I still guarantee we have a couple hours. It's 24 hours in a day. And use those hours efficiently.
That's powerful because there's a testament to that. We can all just go into our iPhone settings and check how much time we spend on the screen and I guarantee it's 2, 3, 4 hours. And that's opportunity cost, right? 3, 4 hours spent on the phone mindlessly scrolling Instagram, where I could be using that a day.
Yeah.
Compound that over a week, a month.
Even just take off one of those hours. Still, like, a lot of people ask, like, I'm on social media a lot. And obviously for business, but also just for pleasure. Because I don't watch a lot of TV. Like, I watch pretty much no shows. I don't watch sports. Like, I don't really watch anything. But I'll watch like big events, like Super Bowls and stuff. But my TV time would be like, for 30 minutes when I get into bed, I'll scroll on TikTok and like just mindlessly laugh, right? Which is fine. People should do that. I'm not saying take away those things that you love, take away the sporting that you love, but like it's every night for 4 hours. Like every Sunday during football season, do I have to spend from 1 to 9 p.m. watching? No, I don't think I have to, right? So it's just like for that person, analyze your day. Really find that 30 minutes, that 1 hour, that hour and a half to work on that thing that you supposedly love and let it build.
And going back to what you're saying, I think waking up an hour, a couple hours earlier, you got that time now where people are not bothering you because they're not awake.
Yeah.
So you have a couple hours where you can get ahead, and that's why I typically like to wake up a little earlier, is because I don't have the emails coming in, no phone calls. There's no friend sending me a TikTok.
Yep.
I can kind of focus on things. You stay ahead of things, and that's the sort of buffer that you need. Because during the day, everyone's messaging you. Probably you got so much stuff going on.
100%. It's the only reason I wake up early.
Yeah.
And I go in waves. Like there's waves that I wake up at 4:30 for 2 months in a row, and then there's waves I wake up at 7. Yeah. But it's because I have a certain goal in mind during that period. But the only way to actually grasp your control of your day is to add more hours to your day. That might unfortunately mean going to bed a little bit earlier and waking up earlier, because nothing good happens after 11 p.m. anyway. Like, what are you doing? On a weekend, it's junk. During the week, it's junk. Like, there's nothing good happening after 11 p.m. So there's no reason I should be going to bed later than that, in theory, right? Obviously, there's events. But on a regular basis, I should be going to bed before that, which means that I should be able to wake up at 5, get a decent night's sleep, and then I'm literally starting my day potentially 1 to 2 hours before everyone else. Yeah. Those 1 to 2 hours compound.
Going to another question I had was, what's a day in the life of Anthony?
Yeah.
How does it start? Obviously, we know you wake up at 4:30 in the morning. You go for a run, whatever. But how does it start? for someone who's listening in, for someone, because obviously a lot of artists are not pretty much showcasing their life as to what's going on. It's kind of very mysterious, as I was saying earlier. So how does your life start in the morning? Obviously you got a family, like how do you sort of differentiate by putting X amount of time for everything, and obviously running business and having a personal life and everything? So
yeah, like a typical day now is like I try to work out in the morning. I have a gym at home now, which is great. It makes it a little more convenient. But even when I didn't, I still always made sure I went home for like breakfast with my son. He starts school at 9. So, you know, I'm home with my wife and son until he's at school. My wife works with me, so then we're headed to the studio. And the days in the studio, they change every single day, right? Like it depends on what I have going on. It depends on outside meetings. Like tomorrow, like today I was in the studio all day. Tomorrow I have like 3 different deliveries. I have a meeting downtown. So I'm on the road all day. So like it's very project specific, but ultimately I'm spending time in the morning. I journal every single day to at least write what I want to achieve that day. And then in life, I also believe in that. Like if anyone wants to take up journaling, like not only writing like, okay, like today I want to execute this, but like actually what do I want to execute as a human being is extremely important. So I do that, but then a lot of it's like a ton of outreach. I still do a ton of outreach, you know, just reaching out to people and then creating. So my days truly move so infrequently. Like it's literally every single day something different. And then all of a sudden I'll get a call and be like, hey, by the way, you have a show in Australia on Monday. Or like, hey, by the way, can you come to Miami tomorrow? Like we went to Orlando last week, and the day before I didn't know I was going. Like literally I booked, everyone always laughs at me, like, cause I book 100 flights a month and I take 3 of them because I just don't know if I'm ever going. But everyone always laughs.
We gotta get you a flight pass at this point.
No, I know, it's crazy. I'm the worst with that stuff. I don't even like collect points. I don't even know anything. I'm really bad with that stuff because I'm always so on the fly. Like it's like, oh, by the way, there's an opportunity in Orlando to meet this guy. He wants to buy a painting, potential. Okay, yeah, I'm there tomorrow, right? So like that's how infrequent my schedule is. But I try to stay consistent with a few things, which is at least getting some activity, which is like some form of health in. I try to have a little bit of relaxing. But even when I have a cigar, like at night. Anytime you see me with a cigar, I probably have my notepad beside me because I do a lot of my like night notes or my structuring, like in terms of creative sketches at night with a cigar. Because I knew cigar is a very, Iota told me this, the Christian Iota. He said having a cigar is a very selfish thing when you have it by yourself because you're literally taking an hour out of your day. No one really could bother you. No one really wants to stand around you when you're having a cigar. It's a very selfish act. So make sure that you're doing something else that's selfish for you. And if that might be drinking a glass of scotch because that's what you want on a Friday night, then sure.
That's powerful.
But it should also be, I use it for creative thinking. I would write down notes. I write down like just structure things. And if I'm already stealing the time from other people being selfish, then I might as well, like my son can't be around me if I have a cigar. It's not healthy.
No,
so
sure.
if I'm already being selfish, well, I'll be really selfish and I'll create as well.
That's so important because we live in a generation in a world where everyone's competing with the next person to capture your attention.
Yeah.
Whether it's social media, movies, news, whatever it is, other people. So it's so important to take a step back once in a while, have a cigar, slow things down from all that negative stimulus, and really try to reclaim the hours of your day back.
Yes.
Right? Because
life's so fast paced. Everything's so go. And especially in Toronto,
Yep.
everything is so quick.
Well, everywhere. Honestly, everywhere. Like New York's even worse.
Yeah,
LA,
100%.
It's like everywhere has its thing.
For sure.
I mean, there's obviously places in the world that are a lot slower paced.
But everything's so fast paced. And it's like, for me at least, it's like, there's times where I'm having a rough day. I drive up to the reserve. I'll grab a cigar. I'll sit there for 2 hours. I'll just smoke a cigar. I will not be on my phone. I'll either read a book or those times at nighttime, I will literally park the car. I'll walk to Yorkville. I'll grab a coffee and I'll read a book on my phone.
It's beautiful.
And just have a cigar. I will not tell anyone where I am and just super quiet. And I don't want anyone to bother me. And this is my form of relaxation.
Yeah. And I also, you mentioned 2 things. The reserve would be like a more scenic, calm. And then you mentioned Yorkville. I really believe in putting yourself in those type of scenarios and situations. Putting yourself, do you know how many times I would even just grab a salad or like eggs in the morning at 1 in Yorkville just to be in that environment. I've met a bunch of people just like, hey, what's going on over there? Like whatever it may be, because I put myself in a scenario where I'm not like at the Tim's over here. I'm like, let me just go into Yorkville because I want to be in this setting. And it's also an inspiring setting because you're going to see people, like-minded people, by putting yourself in that scenario, like-minded people that are also executing, maybe they're on business calls, maybe they're doing whatever it is, and you just put yourself in more situations like that, you'll execute more.
And that's something that he'll tell you, like, he didn't understand. At first, he would come to Yorkville with me. He's like, why do you always come to Yorkville?
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll understand when you come. I go there, I pull up, I have a cigar, you meet a
But
couple
also
people.
open-minded.
Yeah.
You have to be. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I've done that activity with a couple friends. And they're like, well, I don't really care. Like, what's the big deal? I'm
You
like,
have to find the right person.
You gotta, you have to understand
He didn't get it at first because he's like, yo, why are you coming here? Like, I don't understand. Like, this is like, and then he came and then he's like, okay, you know what? Now I get why you're coming.
Plus, I just asked you. One time, I feel like nobody asked you this.
Nobody asks.
Yeah.
They're just kind of like, yo, like, are you trying to like stunt? Are you trying to, I'm like, I don't care about that.
There's a preconceived notion about it. People just see us smoking a cigar and they don't get it. They just think, oh, this guy probably got it. Saw a couple of Andrew Tate videos and he feels empowered. But it's like, no, we've been doing this for years.
I've been going to Yorkville since what, 2013?
And there's a philosophy behind it.
And literally, I just go there, I sit, I smoke cigars, and I've networked so much.
Of course.
And just putting yourself in that environment, it's like you said, going and having brunch at 1. It's like, I want to hit a point where I can go to brunch at 1 every single day for every single meal.
Yep.
And that's how you're going to hit it, not by sitting home and watching snaps of the one.
It's manifesting. It goes back to what you were saying. You got to
Putting
put yourself in those
situation.
situations enough times, and then your body becomes acclimatized to it.
100%.
Yes.
I believe that with hotels. I believe that with travel. I believe that with a bunch of different things.
Like, I always see these videos where it's like, listen, if you're flying, book that first class flight. Because now it's going to push you to want to do better so you can afford that all the time. Or even I tell my friends where it's like, well, I don't know if I want to buy a car, or I don't know if I want to buy this. Buy it, so now you have to hustle harder. So you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and a state that you're going to get there now.
I believe in that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I've done that my whole entire life.
Yeah,
and
I'm still doing it.
It's not, I still do it. And it's not flexing. It's not anything. It's like, it's personal.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even, like, if I'm at an expensive hotel or doing something like that, like 98% of the people don't even know where I am, or like know what that is, or don't even realize that it was expensive. Or that goes with clothing as well. That goes with watches, whatever it may be. It's like, and most of the people that if I'm wearing an expensive hoodie, for example, 90% of the people don't even know that brand. But like, to me, I know it's on my body and I felt a certain way by the purchase of it and the wearing of it. And that goes a long way.
There is one thing I wanted to ask you because this totally skipped my mind, but you're colorblind, dude. What's that like? Because you're producing something that uses color. One of the main senses of the human body.
Yeah.
So what's that like? Do you treat it as an obstacle for you? Clearly not. I mean,
like
this, yeah.
early on, like it could have been. I think I may have thought of it as one, but like now you'll see all my canvases. They're so thick in texture and depth, and it's because I have to work in layers. So like you see, I have all these canvases in the works. The reason is I can't finish a painting and start to finish in one sitting because every layer, every color that I add needs to fully dry before I add the next one. The only time I get in trouble is when I try to rush through a painting. And like I'll add blue over here and yellow over here, and all of a sudden it becomes ugly green, and I don't see it transitioning. Obviously, I just read the bottle, I put the paint on, but the beauty of being colorblind is that I've had to work in that process. And the second beauty is I don't see it at the end. Like I don't see, we're looking at a canvas just over here that has a ton of different layers. I genuinely don't know those colors anymore that are on there. I knew what I put on when I intended it, but it could have changed in the process. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it comes together. Yeah.
It's like there's a certain.
I didn't overthink it. Like, and everyone always asks me, like, "Oh, like you should buy those colorblind glasses." I'm like, I don't want to see the colors.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to.
Because what if it ruins it for you? What if it's like you're like shit?
Well,
like I don't actually like
some
it.
Scenarios.
Yeah.
There's some scenarios when I'm doing custom stuff where I'll ask my wife. I mean, I ask my wife about almost every single painting, but I have a very funny story that literally just happened 2 days ago. I have a custom commission that's going out to. It was the same gallery in Australia. I thought genuinely in my heart, I'm sort of recreating an old painting of mine, that the whole painting was pink. Genuinely, I said full pink painting. I called the guy. I'm like, I got the pink base down. Everything's great. And he goes, okay. And then I go to my wife. I showed her the painting. I'm like, does this look like this? She's like, not even close. It's totally a blue painting. And I'm like, a blue painting? What does that even mean? I mean, it's pink painting. And I called the gallery owner. I'm like, hey, is the painting blue or pink? He's like, bro, I just didn't want to break your heart, but the painting's all blue and you made it all pink. I'm like, oh my! I had no idea because I didn't ask. So I recreate the painting. It's not the end of the world because I can just make a new one. But that does happen if I don't ask people. So I do often. Like my wife is always by my side. So I'm like, hey, I'm making this painting blue, right? She's like, yeah. She's like, okay, cool. I'll keep.
But there's a certain beauty to that. It's almost poetic. Like you don't see the fruits of your own labor to the full human experience.
I know the intention.
You know the intent. Wow, that's.
It's like literally. I remember there's a chef that couldn't taste.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's massive.
Of course.
But it's the same thing. It's like they don't know what flavor is going out.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
There's one question we always like to ask all our guests. kind of wrapping it up is if your life was a 10-chapter book, what chapter would you say you're on right now?
Oof, I like that. My life was a 10-chapter book.
There's no wrong answer.
Oh man, I really think I'm living a long life. I think that with science, I'm talking about like literally structurally with time. I'm honestly on chapter 2. Yeah,
Wow.
like I really think I think no, you know what? I'm genuinely, and I know this for a fact, I'm on chapter 3. I think chapter 1 was my entire childhood, and it was baseball. It was like all the work that I had to do that. Chapter 2 was finance, and I'm in chapter 3 right now, which is my art career. And I think that chapter 3 is going to bring me to chapter 10, and through all the experiences through art. But it could transition into anything. Who knows? But I love that question, and the answer is actually chapter 3.
So give us a little sneak peek. Like, what do you have planned for chapter 4 or chapter 5? Are you planning that far ahead? Are you foreseeing the foreseeable future, the near future? What you're going to be doing? What position you're going to be in?
If you would have asked me this question like 6 months ago, I was very set on all these different things that I was building. Like I want to create all these different brands. I want to be a creative director for Louis Vuitton. I want to do all these different things in my future. Like that was my chapter 8, where I was like, I wanted to do all this different stuff. And ultimately now I'm going back to like really just focusing on talk about chapters, this chapter, which is creating the most incredible work of original art that I physically can, and then see where it leads. Because I got here by doing that. So like, I don't know why I deviated from it by thinking too large. I still am thinking very large, but in one single thing. Like to go, what we talked about in the middle was I'm going to do this one singular thing at the highest level that anyone's ever done it, and then we'll see where it goes.
I love that.
I love that too.
Thanks
I don't
so
know
much.
if it's just all the hearts here, but
I don't know. I'm just feeling
I'm so
lovey.
grateful. I just want to say thank you guys. No,
thanks for
Thank you
this.
so much,
Was
man.
amazing.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
For anyone who's looking to find out where you are,
Yeah.
what's your social handles?
Well,
Where
it's
can
going to be
they
all over
find
the billboard soon. But
Let's go.
before that,
Teaser.
Ricciardi Paints, RICCIARDI Paints on like Instagram, my website, TikTok, Twitter, all that fun
you
stuff.
butchered his last name, bro. You,
I
you
did.
fucked up.
I
dude.
did. No, it's okay.
You fucked up, bro.
Ricciardi,
No,
yeah.
but you fucked up, bro. You
fine.
see, you fucked up, bro.
Ricciardi,
You
yeah.
fucked up.
See, there's no Italian in me. That's
That's it.
No, that's it. But yeah,
Well, thank you,
All
Anthony.
over.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This was great.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
thank you
it.
guys. Thank
But
you.
That's a wrap.